Kyle Busch is off right now. It's pretty evident that he is in the midst of what might end up being his worst NASCAR Cup Series season ever in his career. He has seemingly regressed in maturity. He's running terribly for his standards and, in general, for any champion standards. And when you look at the whole playoff grid, moving the winners up into the playoffs, he's 19th. He's not even close to being the first one out of the playoffs off of points alone. And while he could still win, it's pretty clear he is no way a championship contender. Now, let's look at the numbers on this to start out with, because they kind of tell a bit of a story here, and while different things might go wrong here or there, it is pretty clear. In 15 starts, he has no wins, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 130 laps led, 17.2 average, and only 1 DNF, that coming at Gateway. It's pretty clear to me that he's been running bad if only 1 DNF has been counted this far into the season, and his average is still 17th, which, if that is to hold, would be his worst average finish in a season since 2014. So what would he be on pace for? Well, 0 wins at the moment, which would be the worst ever. He's never had a winless season to his credit. 5 top 5s, worst ever. He has had more than that by a wide margin. And 12 top 10s, worst ever. He's also on track to lead about 300 to 312 laps, which would be the second worst ever, only being bested by last season, which he did seem at least consistently on speed to be a better driver, contender, you name it. The eye test as well just looks off for the driver of the 8 car. He looks generally slower, and while he's had faster runs, it does seem like whenever he's put on TV, he's either getting passed or someone's attempting to pass him. He's just seemed off. He has been angrier. It is very clear the frustration is built up, as shown by, in part, the Larson incident, but in large part, the Stenhouse incident at North Wilkesboro, and we'll talk about both of those in a bit. What are the reasons that he might be running worse? Is it just a natural regression, or is it something more? Well, I think the first thing you have to look at is the equipment. Not to say that it's not all the driver's fault. I think that Kyle Busch himself has accountability in this, but more or less that this slide started basically last year, nearly a year ago, especially in the second half of 2023, where he averaged a 19th place finish in the final 17 races. RCR has struggled to really be relevant since 2017 especially. When you look at the way the RCR has been since then, they've only really peaked up with Tyler Reddick as well as Busch himself last season, and even then he averaged a 15th place run. With it, I think the equipment generally at RCR has been held up by drivers, for instance like Busch or Reddick, or even Kevin Harvick a decade and a half ago. You look at the way that a lot of their teammates would run compared to them, and it was clear that one driver in particular may not have been getting the good stuff, but may have just been putting the organization on their back. And I think Busch could have held this organization up, say, 5 to 8 years ago, but I don't think that he can now. And this leads to another contributing factor that I think in large part is playing to Busch's decline, especially this year, but actually, I'd say over the last couple of years. Kyle Busch is 39 years old, and at this age, drivers can fall off, they can keep going strong, or they could generally just be hit or miss, and that's what drivers at older ages and generally in their 30s and 40s have been in NASCAR, especially their later 30s into their 40s. Like I said, Kyle Busch is 39, and he is performing pretty mediocre, the worst of his career. Kevin Harvick, though, was winning into his age 46 season. Jimmy Johnson had started slowing around the age 41 season. And then you got guys like Kasey Kahne, who only won 3 races after turning 33. My point is, it's all over the place. Busch very well could just be in a really bad slump or regressing to the mean of a normal driver after having an incredibly elite career. He also could be really falling off, and this is just the steady going to steep decline. There are 2 options with that, and neither are ones that fans of Busch would like. He also could maybe pop up again. He could have a recovery, say like Brad Keselowski had after a really terrible 2022 season. Busch has seen his results deteriorate one way or another since 2019, whether it be overall wins since then, whether it be top 5s and top 10s, average finish, laps led especially. And while age is big, I think it coincides with another big point that Busch has never been able to recover from or adapt to, and that is no meaningful practice. Practice and qualifying are things that I know all of us fans really want to have brought back, but it's a bit of a different mixed bag when it comes to drivers. And I think Busch is firmly in the camp of bringing it back one way or another, no matter what he says. Since 2020, Busch and NASCAR alike have had minimal to no practice time. First due to COVID, and then due to the post-COVID changes that NASCAR has made, never really going back to the pre-2020 normal that we had of multiple practices in a weekend and getting that time in to dial in the car and the driver alike. Because I don't think Kyle Busch is like Kasey Kahne and falling off into the middle of his 30s. I don't think that at 35 years old, he up and went from being the best driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, which he was from 2015 to 2019. It was him and Kevin Harvick for the most part, and add in Joey Logano and Martin Truex Jr. in there. But Busch was probably, I'd say, the best driver in Cup. And then all of a sudden, he just falls off, becomes mediocre, is not part of the conversation. But I think what all of this has really done is added another contributing factor and effect all at the same time to why Busch may not recover anytime soon, and it's his demeanor and reaction to it all. Kyle Busch is somebody who's very emotionally driven, whether it be driven to win or driven for payback, whatever it might be. And he seems to already be done with RCR and everything that RCR has really kind of pulled or done or whatnot, how stuff is run. There might be some buyer's remorse when it comes to Kyle Busch going away from Joe Gibbs Racing and JGR saying they couldn't afford him at the price he wanted. And with it, you have, for instance, the Stenhouse and Larson instance. The Larson one, I think, was odd to race that hard in that part of the race for a stage point, but I don't think it's that egregious. They were racing hard, and I think it was overall a racing incident. But it was odd seeing Busch make contact in the straightaway for virtually no reason whatsoever. Stenhouse, on the other hand, that one was uncalled for completely, and crashing him on lap 2 of the All-Star race, I think actually warranted the punch that he got. And I think that these are more effects of Busch's bad behavior or bad judgment, bad driving, bad results, you name it, and not necessarily just something that has popped up out of the blue. And I think with that, he has almost kind of regressed back to a pre-2015 Kyle Busch who almost seemed to be racing enlightened and had just put everything together. It's very clear at this point that Busch has a lot of things wrong, and there's not one fix that's going to cure all. So with that, I want to pass this all on to you and see what you think. Do you think Kyle Busch can have a Brad Keselowski-like recovery, or is this the start of a slow, maybe rapid decline for Kyle Busch overall? Is this it for Rowdy? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And until next time, have a good one.